the Down South Hunting Podcast. This is your host, Mike Higman. Got our co-host here, Adam Cruz, and we have a cool episode for you today. We want to do something a little different, and we interviewed 10 different hunting podcasts about their podcasts and about the hosts, and we asked them 11 different questions. You know, we love podcasts. We love hunting podcasts especially, and, you know, I'm always interested to see what else is out there. So we wanted to put something together that you could listen to and hopefully find some new stuff that interests you.
Don't hold the audio quality against anyone. We did have some guests that were actually out in the woods hunting and doing different things like that. So that's not a representation of all of the audio quality that you will get during a podcast.
And we'll be getting back to a regular podcast next week. I can't wait to talk about some of the hunts we've had. But we wanted to get this out as soon as possible. It's something we've been working on for a couple weeks. So we wanted to share that with everybody. Let's go ahead and jump into these interviews, and we'll come back about halfway through and give you some of our answers to questions as well. Okay, we have Jay Scott from the Big Buck Registry. He is one of the original hunting podcasters, and I'm excited to have him here. Welcome to our roundup, Jay.
Hey, what's happening, Mike? How are you?
I'm doing real good. Let's jump into these questions.
Okay.
How has your hunting season gone so far this year?
Very good. I've got meat in the freezer, which is priority number one for me, despite thinking antlers all the time. And now my pursuit has turned to simply bow hunting completely and looking for a particular buck that I've been trying to kill for the last 3 years. And he's about 6.5 years old, and he has my complete attention now. All
right, so tell me about Big Buck Registry and what makes it unique.
Well, we started Big Buck Registry back in 2013, and I think we're probably one of the older ones, not as old as Mike Adams, but we did start very early. I think it's a unique conglomerate of big buck deer hunters, ranging from the hunter itself to the academic to the no-name guy that nobody's ever heard of. That's kind of our key, is that we look for the talent that's out there. I don't care if you're a celebrity or not. We key in on that, and then we try to take our interview skills that has developed over the last 4 or 5 years and hone it in and try to get a good story out of somebody and learn something. That we're unique in that we cover a lot of different ground, but it's always about the hunter.
And you probably got the best voice for radio out of all of us. I'm a little intimidated here.
Oh, no.
How many episodes are you guys up to, and how often do you publish a new one?
Let's see. We're about to publish episode number, I think it's 227, and we publish once a week, and it comes out at 5 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Okay. You got a whole lot of episodes. What episode would you recommend for a new listener?
I think probably there are 2 or 3. There's Hunting Basics by Dave Pribby. Dave is a big disciple fan of the Whitetail Hunter's Almanac by Ken Nordberg, and he took a lot of his studies and brought it to a seminar style, so that's a good place to start. I also like the Bill Vail interview that we did. He talks a lot about moon phases and things like that. One of my favorites, and one of the things that I'm trying to better myself at, is the Dan Infalt interview. Mm-hmm. He's really opened my eyes to the life of the whitetail and how to bring that into my hunting style. I think taking some of Dan's stuff from that interview has really helped me key in on bedding areas more so than anything.
Okay, what's your favorite non-hunting podcast?
At the moment, I'm listening to A Killing on the Cape. I'm kind of into all these murder mysteries. Up and Vanished is a good one. Planet Money is a big favorite of mine. I like that. I really, and the feed by Libsyn, of course, helps podcasters do podcasting stuff. And I've been getting into merch a little bit. And there's a merch entrepreneur one that I listen to quite a bit. Tim Ferriss, that's a big one that I like. And Congressional Dish is kind of Jen Briney. She goes and, think about this. She goes and reads the articles and proposed bills that are coming up and dissects them into what they really mean and lets you know about all the little, she calls them dingleberries, that all those laws that get slipped into the bill when you least expect it, and lets us know about how dirty our politicians really are.
Oh, interesting and scary at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, how about favorite Treestand snack?
Usually it's a Snicker bar, like the Halloween-sized Snicker bars.
That's a good one. All right. Do you have an embarrassing hunting story about yourself for us?
Other than getting lost or some kind of potty talk, that's probably nothing I'm going to go into too deep. But most of it just probably involves being caught with my pants down.
All right. How about a favorite piece of hunting gear?
Specific to like a firearm kind of thing, or
any way you want.
I love my bow and arrow. Just compound bow. I actually absolutely am in love with my Omega Thompson Center muzzle loader, and the reason I love it for a few reasons. Number one, I bought it at a flea market, so it predates bone collector type branding. Not that I have no problem with bone collector, but it predates that. It's killed a few deer, and I just bought it a few years ago for short money. Had a great little setup. Has a what I would call an over-under scope where you can see underneath through your peep sights, but on top it has a red dot scope that you can use in low light conditions, and it is spot on.
How about describe your ideal hunting spot?
Thanks to Dan Infault, I would say my ideal hunting spot is in and around marshes and swamps, with the use of aerials to get me there, and then truth check them on the ground to see if what I suspect is true. And then if in that process I actually find good buck sign or deer sign or travel routes and corridors and indication that there are a lot of deer running around. Actually, I've been able to put that together this year thanks to Dan. That's my favorite hunting spot.
Cool. All right. What is one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
I am trying to hunt more quietly and closer to beds. Again, going back to Dan's whole concept, I'm learning how to hunt the swamps and identifying bedding areas, trying to figure out where the best crossing routes are, how to I've reintroduced to myself the concept of climbing trees. I absolutely love. I forgot how much I love to climb trees. For a while I had gone mostly to ground hunting because of where I live.
What's the best place to find you on social media?
Social media, Facebook is our flagship, bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram, not quite as big there. And we recently just had our 1,000th subscriber to our YouTube channel, which blows me away considering that we're just audio.
Yeah, wow. Cool. All right, well, thanks so much for coming on with us, Jay. I really enjoyed it, and good luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, next we got Kurt Geyer from Working Class Bow Hunters. He's one of the hosts over there. Kurt, welcome to our roundup.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to jump into these questions here. How's your hunting season gone so far?
I want to say perfect, but that's not the case. Started out on a rough foot here, but we're kind of making up for lost time and turning our season around. Shot a good 10-point last weekend, couple does, and a fall turkey. So
awesome.
A coyote, and I got a fall slam.
Man, well, yeah, sounds like pretty good so far.
Yeah, can't complain.
All right, so tell me about Working Class Bow Hunter, what you guys do and what makes it unique.
Our podcast consists of myself, Stephen Moeller, or Stevie Mo, or Round Boy with the Square Deals, if you're Philip Vanderpool, Eric Hammond, and we're all from Northwest Illinois and Eastern Iowa, and we're basically just some good old boys that bring a real dynamic, a unique dynamic. We don't take ourselves too seriously, don't pretend to know it all. I feel like we're pretty relatable. It's a hunting camp with some bush light and some real honest hunting talk. That's kind of what you get with us.
What episode are you guys on, and how often do you guys publish new episodes?
We are in the 180s currently, and we do one every Wednesday night or Thursday night. Sometimes we'll do 2 a week. Depends on our schedule, but you always get one new episode every week.
Okay, and if somebody hasn't ever listened before, what episode would you recommend they listen to first?
Well, I think it'd be wrong to be like, well, you need to listen to this one and nitpick through what we do, because I feel like every episode we record is real content. So I feel like, you can listen to any episode we've ever done and kind of catch a good vibe for what our show's like, and that hopefully makes you want to listen to more. I say just scroll through and click on one you find interesting, and hopefully you like it.
All right. What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
Currently, it's The Fighter and the Kid, and then second or third would have to be like The Church of What's Happening Now with Joey Diaz. It's really like, and JRE are probably the only 3 podcasts I listen to. Meat Eater's in there too, but I don't really listen to hunting podcasts, which might sound very strange, but I don't want to have it subconsciously get into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Favorite Treestand snack?
Probably fruit, apples,
Okay.
some sort.
Some good healthy options there.
Yeah, no wrapper, and
Yeah.
your breath smells like apples, you know, so that works.
Tell us an embarrassing hunting story about yourself.
You know, man, I was trying to think of one. I really can't think of any off the top of my head, because anything that would happen would be I'm by myself, you know. So if it was embarrassing, I kind of pushed it under the mental rug myself, and no one saw it anyway. So
Okay.
I can't think of one. I'll be completely honest.
All right. Well, how about a favorite piece of gear?
Ooh. Hang on stand of some sort, because my bow, obviously, that's first and foremost, because you can't do it without the bow. But probably some sort of portable hang on stand. I'm experimenting with a bunch, because my buddy Doug Schmidt on the last podcast we did called me Kurt Hanging Stands Guy, or like my thing. Stay mobile. That's where I find most of my success. Any sort of hang on stand is probably my favorite piece of gear currently.
What about sticks as well?
Yeah, gotta have it. Sticks, or if I have to, I'll use the old school screw-in steps, you know,
Yeah.
the old, like the metal ones, but preferably sticks. Quicker, quieter, and doesn't hurt the tree.
Cool. Describe your ideal hunting spot.
This one's pretty easy. Funnels, field edges, water, bedding, and then Illinois somewhere. I mean, I don't know how it gets any better than that for whitetails.
So what are you trying to improve on this season? Give me one thing.
To be honest, it's enjoy the woods and the atmosphere a little more, rather than feeling pressure on myself to get it done, or have like a subconscious pressure, even though people are like, oh, I don't have that feeling, but it's like everyone always expects you to shoot something, and being the hunter you are, or however long you've been bow hunting, and just kind of not worry about the hard work end of it, and sort of just enjoy what's out there rather than stressing about other things you can't control.
Yeah. What's the best place to find you guys on social media?
Facebook, Instagram, at Working Class Bowhunter, or just go to workingclassbowhunter.com, and you can find everything there, everywhere to listen, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, all the goods.
So we got through these pretty quick. I'm going to give you a bonus question. What's your college football team up there?
Dude, I couldn't even tell you. I don't watch football. Don't watch sports. Don't care. Don't care about sports. Never will.
Bow hunting's where it's at, right?
Yeah, that's all I care about, man. Podcasting and bow hunting. That's all that matters in life to me. So
Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on with us.
no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next, we have Adam, Keith, and Matt Dye of the Land and Legacy podcast. Guys, thanks for coming on the show. Let's get this thing rocking. How has your hunting season gone so far?
It's gone pretty well. It's been a learning hunting season for us. We're kind of hunting some new ground, new turf, and Matt's been fortunate enough to harvest a nice buck. I've shot several does, and it's just learning the properties and trying to get on them. We've had a lot of close encounters. We had a really close encounter a few days ago on a giant deer in Kansas. Unfortunately, arrow hit a limb, but we can't complain about the hunting season thus far.
Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast and what makes it unique?
So our podcast is based around a lot of habitat work that hunters can do to improve their properties as well as the hunting on those properties. So we focus a lot on timber management, old field management, food plots, herd health, predator management, and lots of things in between. It all reverts back to how can that improve your hunting. So that's kind of the basis for our podcast.
In terms like what Matt's talking about, it's not just improving the habitat, but we do a lot of improving the habitat to strategically make the hunting better. So we call it property architecture, and it's just kind of a way to make the habitat better, but by laying out certain clear cuts and habitat improvement projects in certain areas that we can funnel deer by tree stands a lot easier.
How many episodes do you have out, and how often are you publishing new content?
We are releasing number 38 this week. So we've got 38 podcasts out, and we're doing it on a weekly basis.
What episode would you recommend for the first-time listener?
I think probably podcast number 19, 10 Steps to Improving Your Property, is kind of in a nutshell, different types of hunting and property management projects, habitat projects, that I think a lot of people, they're easy to understand, and almost anybody can implement them.
What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
Our favorite non-hunting podcast is going to be the Dave Ramsey show that we listen to. He's a really common sense guy, just got a lot of worldly wisdom.
What is your favorite tree stand snack?
Oh, we don't, Matt and I, we're not real big snack guys in the tree stand. I really don't know why, because we both snack like crazy outside of it. But probably favorite in the stand is whenever somehow when we find time to make deer jerky and we bring that to the stand with us.
Not much hunting goes on during that street stand. Ripping jerky and pulling gnawing on it.
Got that issue as well. Well, tell me about an embarrassing hunting story.
Oh, this one, we're going to dial it back. And Matt and I, we both were working at another place, and he was an intern, I was an employee, and we had spent the first part of the fall. I was filming him most of the time, and he had killed a nice buck, so it was his turn to film me. And for some reason, I guess I was so out of the rhythm. I was used to being the cameraman. He was used to being the hunter, that we weren't really thinking, I guess, that day. And so we left the truck. He's filming everything. I mean, he's filming me
I was into it.
He was into it. He was like, I'm going to be the intern that can produce. And so he starts filming me, putting on my gear, the backpack, everything. He films me walking in through the food plot, down into the timber. And we get to the stand. He goes up. And he's filming me down at the bottom. I get to the bottom. I get all my gear. I climb up, and I grab the pull-up rope, and there is no bow tied on the end of my pull-up rope. We had left it at the truck. We had somehow filmed everything of me just walking with my hands out like, like I'm just taking a little stroll through the woods. Completely forgot my bow. Had to go all the way back to get it.
That's hilarious. What is your favorite piece of hunting gear?
For me, I think something that is always just so useful, at different times of the season, more so than others. But I think of a grunt tube, especially the messenger that we use and talk about on the podcast. That to me is a tool that really helps to communicate with the deer. It can change a hunt in a matter of seconds. It just has a whole lot of worth to me in a stand.
And for me, I'm a sentimental guy, probably too sentimental about things, and I've lost a lot of gear over the years, but to me, probably the one that has the most sentimental value is a flashlight. Now, I'm a flashlight nerd. I absolutely love them, but I carry this flashlight that I bought when I was in high school over 10 years ago that has somehow stayed in the pack for that time period. So that's probably my favorite one.
Please describe for me your ideal hunting spot.
Oh man, this one, when you sent us the question, it's kind of we're like, oh, that's a little difficult for me.
That's a deep question, and the response warrants a long drawn out response. So to me, and the way that we choose to hunt and set up a property, I can't think of just one certain setup that is ideal from the start of season to the end of season. So to answer your question, I guess, to me, I want a farm that sets up for, okay, each day I know no matter what the weather condition is, whether it's early season, mid-season, late season, I got a west wind, south wind, east wind, north wind, I can go there and hunt. So I don't necessarily want to look at just one specific type of stand. I want to look at a property as a whole and know that I can go and show up and be successful, have an opportunity to harvest deer or just see deer from the stand each day.
And I'm sorry, fellas, but I'm going to give a response pretty similar to that. I wish I could say, a bottleneck or a saddle, but I would say my ideal hunting situation, back to my sentimental value, I'm really the family farm that I grew up hunting was terrible back when I was a kid, but through habitat management, it's starting to get better. And I would say that the ideal hunting setup for me would be my family farm 5, 10, 15 years from now as we continue the habitat management. And it's kind of a way for me to keep striving to do habitat management just to make it better and better. and never be satisfied with where it's at. Just keep looking in the future saying, that's what I want. That's my ideal hunting setup.
Where's the best place to find you on social media?
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Land and Legacy. We're on both those. We're posting daily hunt updates, things that we're seeing in the woods, whether that just be a habitat question or an observation that we see.
And that's the and sign, Land and Legacy with the and sign, if you're searching for that.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show. Truly appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing your next podcast.
Thanks for having us.
All right, next up we got Jason Hamlet from the I Hunt podcast. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Glad to be a part of this.
Let's get into it. Tell me about how your hunting season's gone so far.
Man, it's going great. I haven't been fortunate enough to harvest one of those big bucks yet, but I've got some meat in the freezer. Lucky enough to put down a beautiful piebald doe this season, and I've had my very first out-of-state hunt this year, so it's been a lot of fun. I can't complain.
Oh, that's cool. And if you haven't harvested a buck yet, that just means more hunting time, right?
That's right. It's just getting cold. That's the only problem.
Oh, yeah. That's not for me. So tell me about the I Hunt podcast. What's it about and what makes it unique?
Well, the I Hunt podcast is, it's about me, somebody who's picked up hunting later in life, only been hunting for a few years, and I've surrounded myself with a great group of guys who've been hunting for their whole lives and who are a wealth of knowledge a lot more than me, and I get to kind of pick their brains each week in a campfire type, deer camp type style conversation, and I get to bounce the problems I'm having in the woods off of them, and they give me some suggestions, and I learn a lot, and hopefully the listeners learn a lot from the conversation. So it's a lot of fun.
Cool. How many episodes have you done so far?
Right now we are on episode number 34.
Okay, and how often do those come out?
I try to release one every week, but when the season kicks up as hard as it is right now with the rut and everything, and let's face it, being in the woods is a lot more fun than talking about being in the woods. So as of right now, I try to do once a week, but last couple of weeks been slacking a little bit.
I hear you. What episode would you recommend for a new listener?
I think right now the episode to get into first would be episode number 23, and that's our very first of our roundtable style podcast, and it's kind of the direction the show's went into since that podcast, so it's a good one to start to get a feel for what the podcast has turned into with this whole I don't think any other podcast is doing 4 or 5 people on at the same time from across the country, so that's where I'd start at.
All right, cool. What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
Favorite non-hunting podcast would have to be Your Mom's House.
Huh.
You never heard of it?
Heard of that one.
I would check it out.
No? Okay.
It's not PG, though.
Okay. What is your favorite tree stand snack?
Trail mix. Raisins, some nuts, some chocolate. Classic. So can't go wrong with that.
All right. You have an embarrassing hunting story about yourself for us?
I do. Back actually when I first started hunting, one of my top strategies that I would take is after I'd sit in my stand for about an hour and a half, which I thought that was long enough at the time, I would get down and try to follow deer tracks through through like CRP area, and thinking I'm going to walk up on a bedded deer and like I was going to jump them up and shoot them with my bow through this tall grass. So obviously that wouldn't have worked out very well, but that was my strategy when I first started. It's pretty funny to look back and think that's how I approached it.
Isn't that how you feel? Like some of these stories you read though, like you hear a guy shot like a Boone and Crockett or like county record buck, and it was like a brand new guy that was just like, oh, I was just climbing down from my stand and he was standing right there.
Oh yeah, I've heard that a lot. I had a guy tell me that during turkey season that was his strategy. Is he just would walk through the turkey woods, and he shot a turkey. I haven't, so he must be on something.
Yeah. What's your favorite piece of hunting gear?
Well, right now with the weather getting cold, man, it's the hot pads, the toe warmers, the hand warmers, the body warmers. I've actually really fallen in love with a Yak Tracker, some new brand of hot pads that I had never heard of it before until this season, and they kick hot hands out the water. I mean, they stay warm the whole time, and they can definitely prolong your sits when the weather turns like we're getting into right now.
Okay. Describe your ideal hunting spot.
I am a big fan of hunting corners of fields, especially if that corner is lined by woods on both sides, to where it's a nice exit point, an entry point for any deer. I mean, it seems right here. I mean, in Ohio, I have a lot of flat ground that I hunt, so I don't get a whole bunch of ridges and natural funnels. That seems to be the best areas for me for deer movement and a lot of deer traffic through in corners of fields.
All right. What is one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
It would have to be my woodsmanship. I mean, as a newer hunter, like just when you're in the woods and be able to take everything in at once and like noticing tracks and noticing what every little sound means and staying still and being patient walking to your stand and just minimizing the impact you have on the woods is something I'm striving to get better at each and every season.
All right, last question. What's the best place to find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. I spend most of my time at the I Hunt Podcast, and I'm also on Instagram under the same handle and on Facebook as well. Our Facebook page is at the I Hunt Podcast as well.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on with us, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be a part of this, and I look forward to hearing everybody else on here. So I look forward to your guys' show each time you release one. So you guys are doing a good job. Keep it up.
Thanks a lot, man. Good luck with the rest of the season.
Thanks.
We have Walt Lee of Chasing Tails Outdoors. Walt, welcome to the show.
Dude, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Hey, man, pleasure. So let's get this thing rolling. How has your hunting season been this far?
Sparse. I have not done quite as much hunting as I would have liked. However, when I've gone out there, I've had a blast, and as long as you go out there trying to learn something new every day, it's bound to be a good time. So, but no deer harvested. I've had a couple does in shooting range for bow season, and we just kicked off our 2017 duck season, and we're slap covered up in birds, but we just couldn't connect this weekend.
What is your podcast about, and what makes it unique?
So our podcast centers mainly around hunting stories. What we try and do is share real life stories that happen to us, both myself and my co-host Leighton, or to the guests that we have on the show. And we try and grab people from all walks of life all over the country and bring them on the show to tell us just about those adventures. Because I think, like everybody, when we sit around that campfire in the fall or in the spring and we're thinking about hunting season, we're always thinking about those memories. And I saw a need for us to get back to the fundamentals of what hunting is. And that is the story. It's the adventure. That's what we all crave at the end of the year, whether it's trying to put does in the freezer, whether it's trying to put a big buck on the wall. It doesn't matter. We all are part of the same community. And I just wanted to create a podcast that centered around bringing the hunting community together with no judgment, with no biases, and just having fun. And that's pretty much the gist of what we do day in and day out.
What episode would you recommend for new listeners to go and to start off with?
I think episode 1, which it seems like the easy go-to, but honestly, if you want to get a feel for what we're doing and who we are, episode 1 kind of lays the foundation for our storytelling styles and what we're all about there. Aside from that, we've got a variety of good guests from bow hunting, public land, to some stories that we're chronicling. There's a series that we're starting that we're going to wrap the sequel up here. It's one of our previous guests, Chase Prince, went to Kansas to hunt public land. We recorded a before the hunt as to how he picked his public land, where he's going, and we're going to record the follow-up to that in the coming weeks. So look for both of those episodes.
What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
EO Fire. John Lee Dumas is an entrepreneur who produces a very frequent, I think it's twice a week, it might be once a week, I can't recall, podcast about entrepreneurs, and he has a very simple, basic set of questions that he asks every entrepreneur. And being that I'm an entrepreneur myself with this podcast, I feel like there's got to be something to what all these other successful people are doing, and that carries over into your day-to-day life as well. So I highly recommend that to anybody who's trying to be ambitious in life.
What's your favorite tree stand snack?
Believe it or not, my favorite tree stand snack is normally just an apple or banana. I suffer from having to climb down from the tree stand far too often. So I pretty much starve myself while I'm in the tree stand just so I can sit there. I've busted too many deer climbing down and leaving a sock in the woods. So I drink a hot coffee and I just leave it at that.
Hey, it might be easier to just cut off some of your t-shirt. That's what I'm normally doing. Tell us an embarrassing hunting story about yourself.
Well, the one that my co-host would desperately love for me to tell is 2015 turkey season in Georgia. We were hunting a plantation in southwest Georgia. I have yet to, in about 7 years of public land turkey hunting, kill a turkey, and he was gracious enough to invite me over to his private plantation to hunt with him that spring. We went back into a bottom that he kept telling me, just like, I think any good guy does, oh, there's a big one down here in this bottom. Oh, there's a big one down here in this bottom. So we get down there, we're not hearing too many birds talking, and all of a sudden the woods just erupt with this one dominant tom. He came right down the road. I was hunting with my buddy's shotgun, and little did I know that this shotgun, my side of the story is I didn't know his shotgun would reach out as far as it would. So this tom comes in on the string, perfect textbook, I'm talking just coming. And at 40 yards, I had a perfect shot on him, and I said, no, get him a little closer, and then pull the trigger when he clears that brush. And I think anybody can guess what happened. He didn't clear the brush. He got hung up at about 35 yards. And in the words of my co-host Leighton, that is the biggest dang tom I have ever laid my eyes on, and you just choked. And I kept trying to plead my case. I said, man, I didn't choke. I wanted it a little further. And he just looked at me and goes, Walter, you're full of crap. You choked. I was like, dadgummit. He took a Coke can and he put it out there at 40. He said, shoot the Coke can, and it just ripped it apart. I'm gonna eat this one. I choked on a big turkey.
Describe to us your ideal hunting spot.
In the south, my ideal hunting spot would be a relatively aggressive slope of planted pines, mature planted pines that have been managed to where they have a very good undergrowth of sage grass or some sort like that, where the deer feel like they can move through with some good cover. That would slope down to a creek bottom with a flowing creek. That way there's always water down there. You've always got a good mass crop.
What is the one thing you're trying to improve upon this season?
I'm trying to harvest mature deer. By being a bow hunter year round and by hunting public land, I've set myself up for quite the challenge. I've harvested many young deer, and I think I've kind of got to the point now where killing isn't the important thing in life, that it's really I'm looking to complete the challenge. And for me, at my current state, I want to harvest a 3.5-year-old deer on public land in the deep south, down here in Florida. To me, that's a quality achievement. That's something that I can feel proud about, and at the end of the night, sleep comfortably. So, mature deer on public land.
Where's the best place our listeners can go to find you on social media?
Well, there's a couple places. We've got a Facebook account and an Instagram account. So if you just go to Facebook or Instagram /Chasing Tails Outdoors, that'll take you to both of our Instagram and Facebook. Actually, I apologize. Instagram is Chasing Tails Outdoors Podcast, and Facebook is just Chasing Tails Outdoors. And we just released our website that I've been working on for quite some time. That's www.chasingtailsoutdoors.com.
Hey, Walt, thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Hey, buddy, I appreciate the opportunity. I hope you get a big deer this year.
You too, brother.
All right, Adam. We're going to do these questions too, but to be fair to everybody else, I think we need to stay under the 7 minutes on our own as well. So let's go ahead and go. How's your hunting season been so far this year?
It's been a very shotgun approach. I've hunted a lot of new properties. I've had a lot of fun. I've missed a big buck. I've killed a doe, put some meat in the freezer. I'm back at it again, trying to find a bigger buck. But how about you, Mike?
This has been the best season I've ever had, and I've probably hunted some of the least. I've been very fortunate to be doing more private land hunting than I have in the past. I've put down a couple really nice bucks, one with my kids and one on my own during the rut. So I'm looking forward to sharing those stories on our next podcast.
Tell us about what Down South Hunting Podcast is and what makes us unique.
Down south is exactly what the name says. We focus on hunting in the south. We try to talk to a lot of biologists and expert hunters and that kind of stuff. So I think our podcast has a lot of good information for anyone across the country. But as an avid hunting podcast listener, I just noticed a theme, as did you, that they don't talk about the South a whole lot. So we want to do something a little different. I think it'd be interesting to somebody not from the South, maybe to get an idea what it's like down here. But we really talk about this type of habitat and the tactics that work best down here. You got anything to add to that, Adam?
No, I mean, our podcast really just focuses on the people that we're interviewing. I will say that, and not really on us and our expertise. It's, who we're bringing to the table.
I agree. How many episodes are we up to, Adam?
We're up to 22 episodes, and we usually try to publish one, probably 2 a month is where we're really at, one every other week or so.
Yeah, we're not to the point. We both have full-time jobs besides podcasting, so, it's not necessarily on an exact schedule, but we try to get them out as much as we can with keeping the value up on them.
So what episode would you recommend for a first-time listener?
I'd definitely have to say the scent control series we did, which is actually 3 podcasts, but we did it with Dan Infalt and John Eberhardt, and we talked to those guys about scent control and how their tactics differ. And I think there's a lot of really good information in there as far as how to evaluate handling your own scent control. What about you, Adam?
I have to point people to our first podcast because I believe it really states what the foundation is of what we're trying to do and the type of people that we try to bring on, which is really science-based or research-based. So there's facts behind what we're the content that we're trying to put out there, and not just really what we think, but what is real. And what is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
It is The Way I Heard It by Mike Rowe. It's like pretty short podcast. It's the podcast for inquiring minds with a short attention span. So they're only like 7 minutes long, but he's a really good storyteller. How about you, Adam?
Go Vols 247. I am a Tennessee football fanatic, and I love college football. Love to talk about it. Love to tweet about it. If you don't like football, don't follow me on Twitter.
How about a favorite Treestand snack, Adam?
I have to say a Cliff Bar and the blueberry flavor. How about you? I'm
going to go with the classic PB&J. It's maybe not the one I like eating the most, but it's like the staple. If I'm doing an all-day hunt, you got to have some PB&J.
Hey, why don't you give me an embarrassing story about yourself, hunting story?
I would have to say the first year I started hunting public land, actually my first archery hunt on public land, I went about 3/4 of a mile back in a swamp. I had scouted this spot a couple times in daylight. And what I did not realize is once it got dark, I got completely turned around. And even worse is my GPS was not working well. And there was not real good signal back there. And the other thing is I had a compass with me. Great idea. But my compass, I believe, my flashlight had a magnet on it. So trying to get back was not working well. Some good Samaritans back at the parking lot actually stayed and honked their horn. I called my wife before my phone battery died, and she called the sheriff, and my parents came over hugging my wife like it was going to be the end of the world. So that was my first experience getting lost on public land. Hopefully the last major one. What about you, Adam?
So the first time I went bow hunting, I was so prepared. I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew all my ranges. I had a buddy that put me up in like an apple tree or something. I can't remember. I was about 14 or 15 years old. He said, man, when it gets right before dark, there's going to be a bunch of does funneling right into this underneath you. And sure enough, they did. And I shot every single arrow out of my quiver and never hit a single deer. And I was just very embarrassed when he got back.
Yeah. And you told him.
And I did tell him. It was a good laugh. What's your favorite piece of hunting gear?
For a while, I wanted to say that it was going to be like a lone wolf or my standing sticks because I'm really into getting close to bedding and that kind of stuff. But you know what? I can't give up on my climbing tree stand. Being down here in the south, it's straight, tall pine trees everywhere. And it's so easy to get up and down with that thing. I got to stick with and it's an API climber, and actually it probably could be a Summit or something like that, and I'd be just as happy with it, but that's the one I have, so I got to go with that. What about you?
I'm pretty much a mobile hunter these days, and getting all your gear in as lightweight as possible is a real challenge. So my favorite piece of gear now is a fanny pack. I try to stick everything I can in this fanny pack and strap as little as possible to my tree stand so I can have as little as weight is going in. So a fanny pack is definitely my favorite piece of gear. Hey man, describe to me your ideal hunting spot.
Okay, it's going to be really close to water, if not in it, on some type of transition line, and hopefully near where I believe a big buck would be bedding. Either that or some kind of funnel during the rut. What about you, Adam?
Kind of a two answer as well here. During the rut, I love hunting saddles. Early season, I'm trying to hunt a funnel that's close to and leads to a food source.
What's one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
Map reading. So looking at a new property from a 30,000 foot view and figuring out where to actually find deer and get deer without having to put feet on the ground, or at least when I get there, how can I get as close as possible? How about you on that one?
Scout, hot sign, and set up right away on it. So go into a brand new area, go in blind, except other than looking at maps or something like that. What's the best place to find you on social media?
Instagram is Down South Hunt. Twitter is Down S Hunt. Our Facebook is Down South Hunt.
All right, man, let's get back to interviewing these other podcasts. All right, next we got Dan Johnson. He's the host of the Nine Finger Chronicles, and he is also the founder of the New Sportsman Nation, which is an actual group of a whole bunch of podcasts. Dan, welcome to our little roundup here.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Let's jump into these questions real quick. How's your season gone so far?
I'll tell you what, I have had a awesome season. Putting it shortly, dude, I haven't spent as much time in the timber as I would like to. I'm a father of 3, and the more kids I have, it seems the less hunting I get to do. But this year's rut, man, my little rut vacation that I had, it was on fire in my in the timber that I hunt, and had an awesome year so far. I was able to harvest a really good buck, and so the rack is just the cherry on top, but I've also harvested a doe as well. So I got deer sticks and salami coming my way.
Awesome. Well, so far so good then. So tell me about Nine Finger Chronicles and what makes it unique.
There's a lot of podcasts out there these days, and some of them cover the same a lot of the same content. However, I think one of the reasons why the Nine Finger Chronicles is just a little different is that I think I'm in touch with the heart of what you want to call the hunting community, and that's just the average Joes, right? The guys that are working 40 plus hours a week and maybe only get to go out and hunt the weekends or hunt that 1 week of vacation that they get. We do a lot of stories, success stories, with the average Joe, whether that's on private land, public land, or maybe some journeys that these guys are taking out west. The podcast kind of revolves around that, but we also go in depth into gear. We talk directly to the manufacturers of a variety of different products. We do product reviews where the average Joes will tell me their experience with certain products, their likes and dislikes, and just kind of go into detail with that. And then we do cover some hunting strategy as well, how to hunt, where to hunt, sign, wind direction, terrain, all that stuff. And we do it through the average Joe.
All right, so how many episodes have you done, and how often do you publish new ones?
Oh, man. I love talking, period. And then I love talking with other hunters as well. And I think I think the Nine Finger Chronicles is pushing over 280, close to 300 different podcasts, man. You get literally everything, because I like to put them out once, twice, and if the time allows, I put them out 3 times a week.
Wow. Okay. What episode would you recommend for a new listener? Do you have any particular one?
Yeah, I tell you what, there is a podcast. It's called Locating Mature Bucks with Lucas Psycho. And you can find that on the Sportsman's Nation podcast network and the Nine Finger Chronicles website as well. But it's basically a podcast about a guy who's very successful on public land and how he approaches it, how he finds these deer, during the off season, does a lot of scouting, and how he puts the pieces of the puzzle together to get it done basically every year.
What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
Dude, I love the podcast Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's an astrophysicist.
Okay.
And that whole podcast is about space exploration, hypotheticals. It's about like galaxies and black holes and all that kind of stuff. And I dig that stuff.
That's cool. What about a favorite tree stand snack?
Favorite tree stand snack? I don't really eat a lot in the stand, but if I do, it's a bag of baby carrots.
Okay. That sounds healthy.
Yeah. I hate hunting on a full stomach because I just feel like I want to fall asleep and then I'm going to miss something.
Do you have a quick, embarrassing hunting story?
Dude, I got a lot of those. I can. The first one that popped into my head, although a little vulgar, I was, dude, I'd go to the bathroom, probably like a lot of guys, off the stand, but I was going number 2 off of the stand, and my stepdad got out of his tree stand early, and he walks up to my bare butt hanging off of the tree stand. So that was a little embarrassing. Not sure if that's where you were going for.
Absolutely, that's what I was looking for. I was hoping you had a pooping story. How about a favorite piece of gear?
Probably one of my favorites is my Lone Wolf stand and sticks. If you're a run and gun or a public land deer hunter, I move around. I'm very mobile in my approach to hunting, and the stand and sticks from Lone Wolf just allows me to do that quietly and as efficient as humanly possible.
How about describe your ideal hunting spot?
Oh man, I am not a field edge hunter. So I this year, to give you an example, the closest I was to a field edge was probably 50 yards the entire season. Mm-hmm. So I don't hunt field edges. So my perfect scenario is probably some kind of staging area that is real thick and nasty that butts up to the back end of a bedding area. And the staging area, probably hunt on either side of it, the side that's closest to the bedding area or the side that's closest to the food source, wherever that may be, preferably in a pinch point if all those things meet up. But one of these scenarios where the deer just walk by you and they have no clue that you're there.
What is one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
Man, I tell you what, it's always a thing for me, right? It's patience and not necessarily going out and hunting as much as humanly possible. There's that old saying, hunt smarter, not harder. I am just a guy who loves to be in a tree stand and loves hunting. And that's a challenge for me every year. It's like October 1st. And I go, man, I want to get in my best rut stand. So,
all right, what's the best place to find you on social media?
Well, you can go to Nine Finger Chronicles on Facebook. You can go to Nine Finger Chronicles on Instagram. You can go to Sportsman's Nation on Facebook, Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, or you can go to Sportsman's Nation on Instagram as well, man.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on with us, Dan. All right. Next, we have Kevin Vistison from the Deer Hunter Podcast. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. How's your hunting season going so far?
So far, it's been highly educational. It's been kind of slow as far as sightings. I've had limited time to hunt, but my rutcation starts tomorrow morning. I leave for northern Michigan for a week, 7 days of doing nothing but deer hunting. So all my chips are in on the next 7 days.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the Deer Hunter Podcast. What is it about and what makes it unique?
I think it's unique in the fact that the group of guys that I do it with, we have a studio which we meet in, and we're just a group of friends that are diehard deer hunters. We've been talking about this stuff for a long time when we decided to try to turn it into a podcast, and a lot of our experience and what we can relate to is hunting extremely high-pressured whitetails, a lot of which is on small parcels of property that I think most common hunters can relate with, very unmanaged property. And then also we do a lot of big woods hunting in northern Michigan. We do some backpacking and some camping and kind of bring it all together into like a backcountry style deer hunting.
Cool. And one thing I've noticed with you is sometimes when you'll do interviews, I know you'll drive out actually to meet with the person and do it in person, which I think is pretty cool.
I'd much rather sit down with somebody and then do it over the phone. Obviously, we live a long distance away, so that's not an option with us tonight. Yeah. But I just feel like you get a more organic conversation when you can avoid doing it over the phone. So I try to do that as much as possible and have people come into the studio.
So how many episodes do you have so far?
So far, I think we just published our 34th episode.
Okay, and how often do those come out?
Throughout the year, they will come out once a week, and from September to December, basically the big deer hunting window for the year, we'll try to get 2 episodes out a week, which we've been pretty consistent on doing. That will typically be available Tuesday mornings and Friday mornings.
Okay. And what episode would you recommend for new listeners? The first one to listen to?
I would recommend 2, because what we do, some of our episodes are just entertaining and funny, and some of them more focus on educational. So if you wanted to get like an educational one, I think anybody would enjoy number 11. It's the state of Michigan's whitetail biologist, Chad Stewart. And then if you're just looking for some entertaining like deer camp talk, number 25, Battle Cruiser, the story of a public land buck, is a pretty good idea of how we hang out, communicate, and talk deer hunting.
Okay. What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
My favorite non-hunting podcast is without question Joe Rogan Experience. He's the first podcast that I ever found, and turned me on to, which eventually turned me on to hunting podcast, which eventually, had, got me to do my own. So.
Yeah. Okay. What is your favorite Treestand snack?
Favorite Treestand snack is coffee, caffeinated beverage. I take a thermos of, coffee that's loaded up with grass-fed butter, usually some heavy cream, and MCT oil, so that I get something with a warm caffeinated beverage with a lot of healthy fat, and it really curbs my appetite throughout the day and keeps me pretty sharp, and it's a nice morale lifter when it's cold out there.
Didn't you put a recipe for that or something on your Instagram? I feel like I've seen that
somewhere. I do stories sometimes and me making up some, what they call it, some guys will call it bulletproof coffee or keto coffee, however you want to do it. But yeah, I make a couple different coffee recipes. I love coffee. Take it pretty seriously.
All right, cool. So how about an embarrassing hunting story about yourself?
Yeah, so my embarrassing hunting story is 4 seasons prior to this archery season. I wounded and did not recover 2 deer, one of which was a doe. I shot far back, hit her in the paunch, and I did catch some liver, had some good blood, but pretty quickly ran out and didn't recover that deer. And then a few weeks later, I shot high shoulder on a nice 10-point buck. And, I don't know if I potentially even clipped one lung. There's very little blood. I feel like it wasn't a mortal wound, but it was extremely frustrating to me. And from that point forward, I knew that I was going to take things in my archery a lot more serious and do my best to not allow that to happen again.
Well, I think most bow hunters can relate to what you're saying. I know I definitely can. It's tough, but when it happens, I guess it is a learning experience for us all.
Yeah, it is.
So how about your favorite piece of hunting gear?
Favorite piece of hunting gear is my my longbow. It was my grandfather's. It's been passed down to me. It's the only piece of hunting gear that I own that can't be replaced. I don't basically let it out of my sight unless it's I'm at sleep and it's in my house and I know it's safe because it can't be replaced.
Tell me about your ideal hunting spot.
My ideal hunting spot is somewhere deep in a swamp in northern Michigan where I feel no one else is willing to go to the effort to get to. And it's a stretch of high ground that becomes an extremely high traffic social area for mature whitetails during the rut.
Okay. What is one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
It's entering and exiting the woods without alerting deer to my presence.
Okay. And what's the best place to find you on social media?
Best place to find me on social media is probably Instagram. Deer Hunter _ podcast is where I house most of the content. We take a lot of photos of our camping and scouting excursions. Our episodes basically get put up there, and then deerhunterpodcast.com is where you can find all the links to the show, and we have some affiliates on the show that we have promotional codes with for gear that we use and like, and that can all be found on our website as well.
All right, thanks so much for coming on, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mike.
All right, next we've got Mark Kenyon from Wired to Hunt. Welcome to our roundup, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, I'm going to jump right into these questions. How has your hunting season gone so far this year?
It's been a little bit of a tougher season in a lot of ways. It started off great. I had a really awesome Alaskan caribou hunt, killed a nice caribou in early September. Since then, I guess because I've been a little bit pickier than usual this year, it's led to me not filling any more tags. 99% of my season has been devoted to trying to kill one single mature buck here in Michigan, a specific deer, and just haven't been able to get it done. So fingers crossed that the final month of the season will go a little bit better.
Tell me about Wired to Hunt, what you guys talk about, and what makes it unique.
Yeah, so the Wired to Hunt podcast is a whitetail focused podcast for the most hardcore, serious whitetail deer hunters out there. Kind of our tagline is deer hunting for the next generation. And I think what makes this unique compared to all the other deer hunting podcasts and hunting podcasts out there is really quality. We are one of the longest running podcasts when it comes into the deer hunting world. We are the highest rated deer hunting podcast on iTunes with more than 1,000 5-star reviews, and we're one of the most downloaded hunting podcasts in general, with millions and millions of downloads every year. So I think we just we tackle a lot of things across the deer hunting landscape, and we do it in a very consistent, high quality way.
I think if there was a godfather of hunting podcasts, that it would be Mark Kenyon.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't know if I can live up to that, but I'm doing my best.
How often do you guys publish new episodes? And did you say which number you were on?
Yeah, so we have published 186 episodes of the Wired Hunt podcast so far, and we have new episodes once a week in the off season, and then during the season we have 2 a week.
So if there happens to be somebody that hasn't listened before, what episode would you recommend for a new listener?
I'm going to cheat and recommend 3. Okay. I'm going to say listen to our most recent regular episode, which is 185, and then go back into the archives and listen to 63 with Mark Drury. It's just a gold mine of deer hunting strategy stuff. And then number 83 with Shane Mahoney to talk about the history and ethics of hunting.
Okay, cool. All right, let's get off topic a little bit. What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
I'm torn on this too. I'm not really good at choosing just one. So I'm going to say Hardcore History, The Tim Ferriss Show, or This American Life.
Okay. Those are all good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite Treestand snack?
Peanut butter filled pretzel nuggets. Oh. If you haven't had them, you got to try them.
Okay. That's a good one. All right. Do you have an embarrassing hunting story for us?
Too many to share here in just a couple minutes. Most recently, I missed getting a shot at the number one buck I've been after all year. I missed getting a shot at him because I was reading a stupid fantasy book on my phone. But another one, I'll give you a little more detail, came a handful of years ago, and I had a buck that I'd been hunting most of that year. This is in Michigan. It was during the rut, and I spot him, but he's just out of range and moving away. So I'm scrambling for my grunt tube. And as he's walking away, it's raining. It was one of those tough days, and I'm just trying to do anything I can to get a shot at this deer finally. So I'm scrambling for my grunt tube. I get it out, and in my head, I wanted to do a snort wheeze at him because I thought that would get his attention, given he had moved so far now. I wanted to be aggressive, get his attention, and hopefully get him back my way. So I went to go do a snort wheeze in my grunt tube, but this is one of those grunt tubes that has 2 openings. It has one opening for a regular grunt, and then has another opening for a snort wheeze, which is just basically a funnel to amplify that sound. Well, in my panic and in like the rush of the moment, I accidentally put my mouth on the regular grunt tube opening and then tried to make a snort wheeze sound through that, which does not work, and it just sounded like a dying duck. And needless to say, it scared him away, and that was the end of my day.
I guess that new call wasn't going to work then. Okay.
No.
How about a favorite piece of hunting gear?
Man, there's so many things I rely on, but probably my clothing, simply because I need that every single time in the woods. So I wear Sitka gear, and that's just kind of crucial to everything I'm doing. And then not a typical thing you might think of as a piece of hunting gear, but my phone. I mean, that's got my weather forecast, has all the information about all the different factors I'm looking at. So moon phase, temperature, wind speed, wind direction, all that kind of stuff. You can look at maps. I can input data from my hunts. It's just a really, really great tool. Not to mention a camera too.
And fantasy novels.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, be careful with those.
Yeah. All right, can you describe your ideal hunting spot for me?
I mean, I'm gonna say there's a lot of different ways we could go with this question. I could talk about like a specific type of tree stand setup, or a specific state, but I'm gonna take all these combined and tell you that if I could be in a river bottom in Montana, where I'm seeing 30, 40, 50 deer a day and lots of mature bucks, but then you add in like the number of big mature bucks like you would have in Iowa. So let's say we take the deer from Iowa, drop them into a river bottom in Montana where there's mountains on either sides, maybe some alfalfa fields and some willows and cottonwoods down the bottom, so you got some cover there. And then I'm at kind of a pinch point where the cover narrows down and empties out into some kind of crop field, and I'm catching all these deer funneling through that little tight spot. That would be my ideal hunting spot.
That sounds pretty sweet. How about one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
Coming into this year, it was about trying to improve my performance in those final seconds of a hunt, being clutch and making sure I was shooting and producing, as best a possible shot as I could. So I changed the way I was shooting my bow this year to try to use more of a back tension type process. And so that's been something I've been focusing all season now. And unfortunately, I haven't taken a single shot at a deer with my bow yet because of the things I told you earlier. So I haven't got to put that to the test yet, but hopefully soon.
Yeah. Okay, well, where's the best place to find you on social media?
And you can find Wired to Hunt on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then, of course, wiredtohunt.com.
Cool. Thanks a lot for coming on with us, Mark.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Next, we have Aaron from the Hunting Public, and this is the first one that we've had a guest that's actually in the woods and been hunting, and Aaron's in between hunts right now and just said he had seen a big buck. But Aaron, thanks for coming on. I look forward to kicking this thing off with you.
Hey, man, thanks a lot for having me.
So how has your hunting season gone so far?
As a group, we've done real well. We've harvested several bucks on public land. I myself have not filled a tag yet, but that's why I'm still out here chasing them around today. We're actually in between hunts right now, getting ready to head out to our evening spot out on public. But overall, it's been a real good year. We've had lots of close calls, encounters, and obviously a few kills. And just in the last 10 days, it seems like almost every day we're seeing a mature buck. So it's going well.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast and what makes it unique.
I'm not real sure if anybody else is doing the live podcast thing or not, but we record all of our podcasts live on Facebook and Instagram, and then we put them up on Podbean and iTunes after the fact. But we like that live format because it allows our Facebook and Instagram communities to get on there and actually chat with us as the podcast is going. So we get real-time feedback from all of our listeners. They can talk to us during the podcast about whatever situations they have going on, like where they're going to be going to sit that evening or whatever. We try to do them around the middle part of the day around lunch break so people can just jump on for a quick 20, 30 minutes and maybe try to help them, harvest a buck there in their next upcoming hunt.
How many episodes do you have, and how often do you publish new episodes?
I don't know the total that we have right now, but we try to do 1 to 3 per week. And next year we're going to be more organized in that fashion, and I would assume that we'll do at least 2 per week.
What episode would you recommend for a first-time listen?
Oh, I would just jump into any of them that we've done recently this fall. We've had some good ones where we've discussed some very current trends that were happening in the woods. There's a couple of them that we did earlier on as well my favorite ones are probably the podcast that we did with Joe Elzinger. I think there's 2 of them on there. And then also we did one with Dan Infalt as well. And Dan's the man, as most of us know.
he is, no doubt. What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
I listen to a lot of fantasy football podcasts, actually. The CBS sports guys, and then I think it's Fantasy Focus with like Matthew Berry and Field Yates of the ESPN group.
What's your favorite Treestand snack?
Oh, right now we've been eating pizza pockets in the Treestand today.
Cold?
Something that Greg's wife Mindy whips up for us, and then we take granola bars and peanut butter sandwiches. Last year I think we ran out of snacks, so we ate brats and fried fish once.
I remember that episode. That kind of sounded a little disgusting on the fish.
It wasn't real good, eating cold brats and cold fried fish. But, hey, when you're in the stand, you're hungry, you got to sit there as long as you can. So just got to make it work.
Tell us an embarrassing hunting story about yourself.
An embarrassing hunting story. Oh, when I was younger, I used the wrong eye to aim at a doe, and I actually missed her by about 30 feet. And it was... she came in, and we were doing a deer drive back in my home state of Missouri. She came in real fast on me, and this was before I had a peep sight on my bow. All I had was a kisser button. I was probably 12, 13 years old. She came in underneath the stand, and I drew back, and I'm right-handed shooter. Instead of closing or squinting my left eye and looking down the string and through my sights, I closed my right eye and looked at my sights with my left eye, and I put it right on her and shot, and I heard a thwack and didn't know really what happened. She took off running, and I looked up in the tree up about stand height to the left of me, and I'd stuck the arrow in a tree, missed her by a good 20 or 30 feet.
Wow. What is your favorite piece of hunting gear?
Oh, probably my headlamp, or let me think. My headlamp, or I would say my safety harness. Both of those always go to the field with us.
And can you describe to me your ideal hunting spot that you're looking for in the woods?
It kind of depends on the time frame of year, because it just changes with every situation. But on public ground, in a nutshell, we're looking for areas where there's very little human scent. And that is either overlooked spots close to the road, or it's spots way, way back in there where people hardly ever go, or spots that you have to get creative with your access, like using a canoe or waders or something like that. Those are my favorite spots back in there where you can get by yourself and into a deep dark hole in that public land where nobody's been in a while. Those spots are super cool.
What is the one thing you're trying to improve upon this hunting season?
Oh, we're trying to be more efficient with our hunts and our gear all the time, because we're filming everything. It's quite the process, as you can imagine, going out there each time. So we're constantly trying to look for ways of, making our stands lighter, making our gear that we take with us lighter and more efficient to set up. That way we can, we don't exhaust ourselves throughout the course of the season, because these whitetail seasons are marathons, and efficiency plays a big role. You want to be able to get in, hunt, get out, rest, and then get right back out there. And if you're burning yourself out in a few of those earlier hunts, then you're not going to be there, when it counts 5-6 hunts down the road.
Where is the best place that the listeners can find you on social media?
They can find us on Facebook at The Hunting Public, or Instagram at The Hunting Public as well.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming on. I enjoy your podcast and your YouTube shows. Definitely, the listeners should check that out. Thanks again for coming on.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
All right, next up we have Dan Infalt from the Hunting Beast podcast. Dan, welcome to our Roundup podcast here.
Hey, hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You?
Yeah, good.
All right, so let's get into it. How has your hunting season gone so far?
It's been a roller coaster. The good news is I got to tangle with and see a lot of good bucks. Bad news is I don't have one. But, I get to go into late season and hunt late season. I haven't got to do that for a while because I never have tags.
Yeah, I guess that's the good news of not getting one early.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Hunting Beast podcast. What makes it unique?
The Hunting Beast podcast, we dwell more into kind of the hardcore tactics rather than glorifying buying a hunter or, something like that. It's not sponsored, so we're not promoting products or being told what to say. So it's kind of unique in those manners. I mean, we really go into depth on skill sets more than, people or personalities.
Okay. How many episodes have you guys done, and how often do you do new episodes?
I believe we got 22 episodes. We don't do it on a regular basis as everybody else does. I don't like getting things watered down, and I think you get that if you try to force a weekly show. So we really only do it when we have a good topic to talk about. And I just put my hunting and stuff first, and during hunting season, you don't hear from me much at all.
All right. What episode would you recommend for a new listener?
Like I said, none of ours are watered down. So if you go in there and you pick one out and listen to it, they're all great in my regards. If you don't like it, you won't like the rest. But if you like it, you'll like the rest. So
I personally like those Q&As you did a lot too. There's a ton of info packed in a smaller amount.
Yeah, I'll just say that that one was really a hot one. I mean, as far as feedback.
All right. What is your favorite non-hunting podcast?
Honestly, I don't listen to podcasts.
Okay. How about a favorite non-hunting TV show?
Non-hunting TV show? I like crime shows.
Okay. Anyone in
the
particular?
reality ones. Yeah, like FBI files, forensics, stuff like that.
So how about a favorite Treestand snack?
That would be candy. I really don't eat in tree stands, but a lot of times I'm really tired because I get up and go to work at 2 a.m. so I can go hunting in the afternoon, and I'm falling asleep. So I put a piece of hard candy in my mouth and keeps me awake.
Okay. And anyone in particular?
Jolly Ranchers, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite Jolly Rancher flavor?
The green ones. I think they're sour apple or something.
Yeah. Okay. I thought that might be it. All right. How about do you have an embarrassing hunting story you can tell us about yourself?
Sure. When I was 9 years old, I got ran over by a deer. I was hunting with a little stick bow that my dad bought me. Little red recurve bear bow with a target arrow.
And what was he doing?
I was walking through some thick brush with my dog Buford. I went into a little opening, and I came face to face with a buck that had his antlers broken off. And I didn't know what to do. I remember I was 9 years old. So I'm looking at this thing. I didn't know whether to make it a pet or to try and kill it. I just stood there staring at it, and all of a sudden it just ran straight at me, put its head down, hit me in the guts, and I went flying.
Crazy.
And deer kept going.
Wow. Okay. What is your favorite piece of gear?
My favorite piece of gear is my own tree stand and sticks that I designed and made myself.
Yeah, what's so special about those?
I made them for being mobile. They're real lightweight. My sticks are 1.4 pounds. I made sure they got double steps on both sides, a better angle so your feet don't slip off them even when you're on a cantered tree. And there's just one step, there's no middle step, so it's not wasted weight and wasted stride. And the stand's only 7 pounds, and it's real slim line for getting through heavy brush and going for long distances.
Wow.
And when I have five sticks in the stand on my back, if I got a jacket on, I don't even notice it.
And I heard a rumor those might be available for sale at some point.
They might, yeah. We're trying to work the details out with that, yep.
Cool. Could you describe your ideal hunting spot?
My ideal hunting spot would be 50 yards from a bedded buck, with a light wind, probably slightly in the buck's favor.
Okay. What is one thing you're trying to improve on this season?
I would say I had gotten really cocky the last few years about thinking I could kill any buck that got within 40 yards of me. And this year I've been really kind of put back down on a level platform here. I've missed a shot, hit a limb on a shot, and had a couple catch me drawing. So my goal right now is before the end of the season, this late season, is to make a nice clean kill on a big buck.
Okay, well, that's always a good goal. And where's the best place for people to find you? I know you're not personally on social media a lot, but if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
The Hunting Beast. It's thehuntingbeast.com is a forum where we talk tactics a lot, and you can actually communicate with me. Just PM me on there, and I always answer. It might take me a day or so for hunting or out of town or something, but I always answer. And it's a different kind of forum where we don't allow any kind of bashing or anybody to say like hater type comments. We just remove those type of people. So it's a real nice atmosphere. It's good for kids, good for family, and just a nice place.
Cool. And you got a YouTube channel as well, right?
Yeah, the YouTube channel is pretty cool. We got some pretty good videos on there. I mean, you got to dig through some. Some of them are a little corny, but there's some really good ones in there too.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks a lot for coming on with us.
I appreciate you having me.
I don't know about you, Adam, but I had a great time doing those interviews. It was really cool to get to talk to some other hunters that are really into deer hunting and also really into podcasting.
One of my favorite things about podcasting is all the really great people we've met in the hunting industry. So it was just a lot of fun.
Even though the interviews were only like 7 minutes, most of the conversations I had went half an hour to an hour. It just, you get talking deer hunting, you can talk forever, it seems like.
No doubt. Speaking of talking about deer hunting, next week we'll be releasing a new podcast with Mike and myself talking about our hunting season so far. We haven't had a chance to do that, so I know we're both looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to get another podcast out. I got all these stories I've been saving up about the season so far, so I'm looking forward to sharing those. And speaking of sharing, share these on social media anywhere you're on, and we're going to use the hashtag DeerPod, DeerPod, and everyone that's been on these interviews is going to be monitoring those as well, so make sure you tag anybody as well that you want to, and we'd really appreciate that. So with all that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're out down south.
We're out down south.